Hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. In this video I want to show you how to use real-time ray tracing in Unreal Engine. Now the first thing you're going to need is Unreal Engine 4.25. Real-time ray tracing has been in Unreal Engine for a while now, but it has been in sort of an alpha beta kind of deal. So some of the features may not be in the same place where I'm going to show you. Just take that into account and make sure you have the latest version. The second thing you're going to need is an RTX GPU. I've read that there are certain older GPUs that can work with RTX, like from the 1060 onwards, but don't quote me on that. I'm not pretty sure how they work. They may or may not work as intended. Now let's just get on with it. Now I built this little scene with the Quixel demo for the abandoned apartment. The demo is available on the marketplace. I'll leave a link in the description for you guys to download. Now let's get on with some things that you're going to need as well for this. Now you need to go to project settings and you need to make sure that number one, ray tracing is on, because otherwise you're not going to do anything that I'm going to show you. You're not going to be able to use any of the options. So you can just go into project settings, ray tracing, just type ray tracing on the search bar, and you make sure you have this tick. Make sure this is checked. The other thing that you're going to need is make sure you go to Windows and make sure that it says DirectX 12 here. If it says something else, then you need to switch it to DirectX 12. You may have to reset the engine, restart the engine, and everything will be fine. Some things that you're going to need. Now, real-time ray tracing is a little bit taxing on the system, so just bear that in mind. You may see a little bit of a slowdown here and there. Let's get started with the light source. Now I have a couple of things here that showcase precisely what I want you guys to see. So if I go to my light source is just a directional light. So there you go. And I do have a rectangle light which is casting this light that's coming through the door right here. See what happens if I turn it off. Now let's go to the light source. And let's go to the settings so you guys can see. The things that we want to look at is these settings that are right here that say ray trace shadows, ray trace reflections, and ray trace global illumination to a lesser degree, because this one doesn't do much, but these two do a lot. So I want to turn them on and off so you guys can see what goes on in the scene. So if I turn off ray trace shadows, you're going to see that the shading over here actually changed, because when you don't have ray trace shadows, it's no longer accurate. So right now it's calculating with every part of the geometry that we have here, and that's what's producing the shadows that we have down here. Now, ray trace reflections, you're going to see that if I turn them off, you don't see the lights on the mirrors anymore. Okay, so there's that option. Make sure you have that on. Now let's go to the rectangle light. It's going to be doing exactly the same thing. You're going to see the change is actually more drastic if I turn off the ray tracing shadows. And same deal with the ray trace reflections. Let's go to our camera, because there are some functions here that you want to play with. If you are using ray tracing, you can go here and you're going to see that under render features, you're going to have ray tracing ambient occlusion. If you have this checked off, look at what happens. There's a little bit of a change in the way the ambient occlusion is occurring. So this is why it's important for you to have this on if you're going to use real-time ray tracing. You could also increase this. Let's increase it to 8. So the ambient occlusion is a little bit tighter. Now there aren't many objects in the scene, so you don't see that many changes. There's also ray trace global illumination. This, if you switch this to either brute force or final gather, these are extremely heavy post-processing global ray trace illumination, and they are going to tax your system a lot. I'm actually going to show you what they do. If I crash, I'll let you know. Alright, so that's Final Gather. Final Gather does this, and it gets my system really slow. Final Gather does this firefly looking things It usually, if you've baked light in Unity, you've seen this. If you have used a real-time, an offline renderer, it's kind of the same as the fireflies that you see all around. That being said, this is extremely noisy, so you may have to like crank this up all the way to 128 in order for it to be even usable, or maybe more than that. At least it's only letting me do all the way to 64, so I don't think this is usable at all, so I wouldn't use this, to be honest. I'll just disable it. Ray tracing reflections. This is another thing that's really important, because if you switch things around here, you're going to see some difference here in your reflections. So if I turn off the shadow part, you're going to see that my shadows change and they start looking all weird and nasty. So you may want to switch this on, and you can switch it to hard shadow if you want to save a little bit on performance, but that will get them looking bad again. So I would just let it be to area shadows. We may have to like lower this a little bit. It's a little bit noisier, but my system, it's not bogging down as much. So in order to get rid of this noise, you just need to increase these. Let's actually switch this to 64 and put the bounces to 2. Okay, it's a little bit less of a noise, and system is a little bit slow, but not so much. All right, so that's ray tracing reflection. Now the other thing that I want to talk about, because you may run into this problem when you're using real-time ray tracing, is this little noise that you see over here. If you keep looking at this point, you're gonna see that there's a little bit of an animation here, which is not intentional. That's just the rays trying to get the pixel correct, and it actually has to do with the size of your pixel density. So in order to correct that, now what's causing this is my rectangle light. You can see that that goes away once I turn this off. So I need to go into my rectangle light, and I need to go all the way down to samples per pixels, and I need to increase this in order for that to go away. So let's just crank that up all the way to 32, and it instantly goes away. So if you see that you're having a little bit of a noise over here, and all you have to do is crank up your samples per pixel. Same thing that's going on right here in my reflections. You're gonna see that this is kind of like flickering. There's a little bit of flickering noise. It's barely noticeable, but all you have to do, if you see that little noise like I saw right there, is that you have to increase the ray tracing sample per pixel. Let me do it on the light source as well and see if that changes much. I'm gonna do it to 16 so it's not as big. Alright, that's it for this video. Make sure you like and subscribe. Leave me your comments down below. If you're using a non-RTX GPU, I would like to know if this worked for you or not. So please leave that in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.